This video will do a deep dive into customizing repeating items in your Word documents. As you saw in our other video, a repeating item question allows you to ask about anything that there could be 0 of or hundreds of. Children, shareholders, or members are really good examples of this. First, we'll click the repeating item section in the add-in menu. Here you'll see that we're using the example children inside of our workflow. And if I deselect these, you can see that I have 2 different attributes for these children, child name and child DOB, which is my variable name for date of birth. Now, we have several options as to how to display those children inside of our document. We'll start with a table. So a table, if I select Format as Table and click Insert Field, you'll see that this table is inserted into my document. You don't need to understand this syntax, but what you'll see up top is that the child name and child date of birth are used as headers. Those are used as headers because they were the questions in my workflow. I could choose to delete this entire column header. Now, when my document is run, if I have 1 child, there will be 1 row added to this table with that child's name and that child's date of birth. If I have 10 or 15 children, there will be 10 rows or 15 rows with those 15 children and those 15 dates of birth. There are a few other ways that you can display repeating items. You can add them as a list, which would just list, let's say our children's names were Jane, Jack, and Jill. It would just list Jane, Jack, Jill directly on the document. You can use them on a multi-line list, which would display them on different lines. Now, I may want to display this information differently than in a table. For example, with commas in between them, or with an Oxford comma, semicolons, or a custom separator. I'll do this example using just the child's name, but it can also be done with both or all of the variables. So using just the child's name, if I say I want a list with commas and I click Insert Field, what this is going to do is it will have my child's name, comma, the second child's name, and third child's name, assuming there are 3 children. So for example, this might say Jill, Jack, and Jane. If I had used the Oxford comma option, it would say Jill, Jack, comma, and Jane. And if I only had 2 children, it would say Jill and Jack. And if there were only 1, then it would just display the 1 child with no and. Now, I can also add additional attributes into this. So for example, let's say I want to add both the child name and the child date of birth. And then I click Insert Field. What this is going to do for me is it will insert each of the children's names and the child's date of birth. So I can actually customize this text to say child name, comma, who is born on child date of birth. What this will do is it will say Jill, who is born on 1/1/2000, Jack, who is born on 2/2/2002. And because we chose the regular comma, it will not have a comma before the and it'll say and Jane, who is born on 3/3/2003. So in this example, I can add as many different pieces of text or customize this in any way as long as the language that I use is in between these 2 brackets. And finally, you can use the custom separator option to use your own separator at the very end. So for example, if I want to use another language and in another language like E or et, then I can use that inside of the separated by A. And then it will show, instead of and, it will say E or A. Now there's one more thing I'd like to show you within repeating items, and that's repeating item conditions. So for example, if I select a particular phrase here, I can actually have it show dependent on the value of my children. So I can have it show if my children are more than 1, less than 1, less than 3, equal to a certain number, or whether the value of one of the attributes is equal to something. So let's say if the child's name is John, then I can have a certain condition displayed. Or this particularly comes in handy with gender. If you want a certain phrase to appear if the child's gender is a certain gender, then you can use this condition to set that inside of your document. Now, this concludes our deep dive into customizing repeating items. If you have any other questions, please let us know. We can answer them in person or create more videos.